has come in and said to every business user, I hear about this thing called AI. I can use it from a browser at home. How am I going to apply that to my IBMi workload? Well, let me just tell you, first of all, we've been doing things with IBMi and artificial intelligence for quite some time. Way back in 2016, we had the beginning of our customer stories that were based on IBMi clients using open source and traditional RPG to do AI in IBMi. So we did credit score validation, we trained things, we tracked things for food safety, we predicted customer preferences and found customer preferences and did pre-manufacturing processes. We had chatbots created, all of that stuff. If you look back at when we started doing our customer stories, some of the coolest customer stories we had were based on IBMi customers using the technology that we integrate to be able to do specific AI workloads. And then we got to the point where Power was talking about AI intensely. And so when Power 10 was announced, we actually had on stage with our executives an example of how an IBMi workload running DB2 RPG could then take advantage of the fact that there was a Linux partition that was that was using the Power 10 integrated matrix math accelerator to do AI on behalf of an IBMi workload. So a lot of great stuff has happened. We have also integrated some AI directly into the platform itself. Watson Geospatial was announced and delivered in the fourth quarter of 2022, and we already immediately had customers who picked up that artificial intelligence built into DB2 and added it to their solutions because they had been trying to do that externally from DB2, and this solved the problem for them. Meanwhile, in the background, I can't tell you everything that we have going on here, but we have people who are figuring out how to do AI enhancements or augmentations. In fact, there's an extension to the VS Code-based tools that are not only in Merlin, but are out there in the open source community and worked on by the community that can prompt a user's large language model directly from the VS Code-based tools. And we are currently working on the underpinnings for the strategic stuff that we're going to do in the future. And I want to talk about those strategic things now. But if you're talking about IBMi and strategy and AI, it still fits into what we do. As far as our customers and our investment is concerned, we want to make sure that we invest in AI that works for their solutions and data. We don't just want to be a machine that you put an AI workload on. That's not what we're about. We're about implementing AI that can work with your solutions. We're about giving you choices on what AI you want to integrate with. We're not here to tell you there's one and only one way to do it, and then we will try to make it as easy to deploy and manage as possible. While some of our larger customers are investing in hiring data scientists and so on, we don't want every customer to have to figure out how to, or have to hire someone who figures out how to get an AI workload up and running and connected and manage it all the time, right? We want to make that part of what you do as your day-to-day IBMi management. And so there is investment to be made strategically to make that happen. So over the course of the past couple of years, we have been talking to those advisory groups that I had mentioned on a previous slide about what value do they want AI to bring to their businesses. And in general, when you talk to a large group of people, which is what we've done, these are the three general use cases. Number one, I've got an application, it's doing transactions. I know that there are AI workloads out there who, when they see transactions happen, can predict trends in data that are beyond what traditional analytics can do. There are AI workloads that can notice that these transactions look different from most transactions. They're an anomaly. Maybe they're an attempt at fraud. And those AI workloads exist today and are getting better and better all the time. Our clients want to be able to connect their existing data transactions as they're going on with those AI workloads and gain benefit from them. And they want to do it simply. They don't want to have to hire a whole new team to make that happen. Particularly in the small and medium-sized businesses that we often sell into, they want to get value from that in a very simple way. Now, some of our customers are doing this already. I just want to make it clear. Some of those customer examples that we had, they were able to take all the pieces that we provide, plus all the pieces that are out there in the industry, and they were able to make that stuff work. And more power to them. That's great. But a lot of our clients who don't have the resources to devote to hiring experts on AI, they want to get that value as well. Same sort of thing on the second thing down, operations. There are AI workloads out there. There are AI-based tools out there that can actively monitor what's going on a platform or a set of platforms and can then alert or even take action like self-healing to say, oh, this virtual machine needs to be updated. We're going to take care of that. And our clients want us to apply AI to that part of their business as well. It's not just their application, but also how they're managed. And then the final thing is, I want to use AI to help with development. And I'm going to get into a great deal of detail here. I've been talking about this more than I've been talking about anything else, so I'm not going to talk about it more here. Now, it turns out that those top two things are actually very similar to one another. It is the AI tool that you're going to use might be different, but from the point of view of IBMi, it's all about making sure that the AI workload can get the data that it needs in the way that it needs it, using the protocols and standards and so on that it's dependent upon, at the speed that it needs, okay? And so from the IBMi investment side, on the left-hand side, we are investing in the infrastructure, the plumbing, the pieces that are going to be able to feed the necessary data, whether it's application transaction data or whether it's operations data, to those workloads. Now, who are we going to do that with? Well, that is not something I'm ready to announce right now. Next week, by the way, Jesse Gorzinski has a guided tour on Wednesday where he talks a bit more about this. But if you go out there into the world and you ask Google, for example, tell me what AI analytics and what AI operations workloads are out there that you might be able to use, here's just from a quick Google, right? Here are some of the things that we find. And there's no real overlap between the analytics side and the ops side. So I'm not saying that we have to do the exact same thing for both of them, but it is the same kind of concept. What data do these workloads need to be fed to it? Now, likely what's going to happen when the next generation of Power comes out is that we will have a couple of customers who have their own specific AI workload, whether it's in analytics or ops, most likely analytics. And we will have created an easy to deploy option for them and any other customer who uses that kind of thing. But we will then have the infrastructure in place to be able to feed lots of these different AI workloads. And that's an exciting part of what the future of this platform is going to contain. Now, I will mention this is not all future stuff. Right in the middle of that AI ops column is Instana. Instana is currently supported on IBMi. It is currently one of the things that Tim Rowe talks about extensively. Instana, like many other applications, is partially AI, and that's the part that's growing, and it's partially rules-driven, alert-driven, that sort of thing. As an application, it is doing more and more AI stuff. And so we are feeding it necessary information so that it can use its AI to make decisions and operations easier on IBMi. So this is not just a future thing, but most of this stuff for mass consumption is a future kind of thing. And we're investing in that stuff. You'll hear more and more about it over the course of the next year, year and a half, et cetera. All right, but now I want to get to the thing that I've been talking most about recently that's been generating most of the excitement that's been written about in the press and podcasts and so on. I want to talk about how AI can be used to help the developer experience and help customers hire developers and use AI-based tooling to have those developers um, get more familiar with RPG much more quickly and update code much more quickly. I did a whole guided tour that was about AI strategy and then dived into this. You're going to get some pieces of this here because it's really critical that you understand we're headed in this direction. So if because we as IBM want to help our IBMi clients, if we're going to apply an AI tool to help clients with their existing code, what should we start with? Well, thanks to our interactions with clients and the Fortra survey, we can tell you that when clients do new development on IBMi today, 89% of the time, part of that new development is going to be in RPG. So if we're going to do something with an AI tool that helps programmers on IBMi, and we have to start with some language, we're going to start with RPG. That makes the most sense. Okay. By the way, Tom talked about it. Thank you so much to all of you who respond to this survey year after year. It does have, by design, many of the same questions. We have noted that this top number of how many people are using RPG for new development has grown over the last several years. And that is an indication that our strategy to make modern free format RPG more valuable and accessible to all of the client base, including the new programmers that we hire, it has been successful. People can use RPG for new development, but they are also using other languages like Python, PHP, and Node.js because our strategy is give you options, use the language that makes sense for the part of the workload that it fits best with. Okay, so thank you for answering the questions year over year because we are able to see how much the adoption of various technologies is taking off. Now we do have other languages, and we have to support those languages as well. But if we're going to do something for the large majority of our clients, we got to start with RPG. Even that, if that wasn't the answer that other platforms may have come up with, for us, we got to start with RPG. Now, fortunately, as I said, RPG free format is the thing that's making the difference there. When we ask customers what version of RPG are you using for new development, first of all, 93% of them are using ILE-based RPG as opposed to the older RPG, okay? But even among those people, the majority, the significant majority, are using free format RPG. Thus, they're able to use the most modern tools to do free format development and then integrate that into things like modern DevOps, etc. So that's great. So if we're going to help customers hire people and use ILE RPG free format, we should continue to invest in tools that make that easy. And we have been doing that even before AI. But now we're going to apply AI to it, okay? There was a proof of concept done by some IBMers, not on our team, that trained a large language model to be able to assist coders. And the things that it was able to do are ultimately the goals that we want for a code assistant for RPG. An IBMi code assistant tool, and I probably should have changed this. We're talking about it as a RPG code assistant tool right now, but the point is still the same. Our businesses that use IBMi and specifically RPG have said the most important thing that you could help us do, we have so much existing RPG. Some of it's fixed form, some of it's free form. The newest stuff is free form. Okay, but if you can help programmers work with that, then it'll be easier for us to hire people who don't know RPG, give them a tool, in addition to the tools you already have, that make it easier, particularly if when they're using the tool, they can use the tool to say create free format ILE RPG based on an English description, so that programmers who may know some other language can come in and say, I want a subroutine that does this, and it sees how the tool generates RPG code. And they say, I see how we do that in RPG. I may know how to do that in Java or C or something. Now I see how I do that same thing in RPG. That would be very helpful. It would also be very helpful, and this might be the most important thing. This is what actually our advisors have been telling us recently. More importantly, maybe than the generating, if you could have a tool that could look at existing code that's in my portfolio that was written 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and explain to the new owner of that code, what is that code doing? Now, if any of you are programmers out there, you know the effort that goes into picking up a piece of code that was written by someone else. First of all, people 20 years ago did not, and 30 years ago, did not document their code as well as they ought to have to be able to pass along the knowledge of what the code is doing to somebody 20 and 30 years later. They may have tried, though I got to tell you, from what I've seen, most people who wrote code back then just wrote it assuming they would be the person who was going to own it forever and that they'd always remember what that code did. So if you have a tool that can look at code and explain in English, what is that code doing? That could reduce the amount of time that it takes for someone to take over the support of that code, to be able to find problems in that code, and in particular, to add something that becomes a new extension to that code. Even if that code itself is going to stay the same, maybe it becomes a service, and now you know what that service does, and you can use it as a service being called by something else. In any case, having a tool which can understand RPG well enough that it can explain in English what this RPG is doing would be very helpful. Then, wouldn't it be cool if you could write a piece of RPG code or show the tool a piece of RPG code and have the tool generate a test program for that, so that you could put that in a test suite that gets run over and over and over again to make sure you didn't break anything when you added the next enhancement. That would be great. Now, the last thing on this list is we all have older RPG. Wouldn't it be nice if this tool could help us transform that older RPG into modern ILE-based free format RPG? Now, we know that there are tools out there in the marketplace that can do that. They are not currently using AI to do that, but I got to tell you, if you train a model to know how to generate modern free format ILE RPG, and if you train a model to be able to explain RPG, even if it's not modern free format RPG, you're halfway to being able to ask the model, maybe even more than halfway, being able to say, okay, I've got this older RPG, transform it into what it is. Because essentially what you're doing is a transitive thing. Internally, it explains what it is that that old RPG did, and then it takes that explanation and feeds it in to the generation. It's not exactly how it happens, but conceptually, you can think that once you've done, generated and examined and explained, you can get more out of it. All right. Well, as I mentioned, there was a group that wrote, that trained a large language model to be able to do these things with RPG. While they were doing that, we were trying to come up with what should a full function code assistant for RPG be able to do, and they proved to us that this could be done. And so that's what we want to create. Okay, now it's not magic to create a model. It takes a significant amount of work, and the work can be done in efficient ways and non-efficient ways. The most efficient way to train it is to say, here's a block of code and here's the explanation of that block of code, right? So if you have a block of code and an English block, an English description of it, you can feed it in, and after enough of those, The large language model will then figure it out. It doesn't need every single thing to be described to it. It needs enough that it can then use the intelligence that's in its neural network to say, this is like that, these pieces are together, and it can then generate English for things it's never seen before based on its knowledge of the code and what it means. You can also do the same thing to do generation and English description, as I mentioned, so it's very similar. To do a test thing is different. You have to train it to understand how you write a program to test a piece of program, but because it knows other languages, other computer languages, and how to test in those computer languages, it can eventually detect patterns. When you're testing RPG code, this is how you do it versus what it might know about how to test in Java or C or whatever. And the same sort of thing for translating from or transforming from old to new. Okay, now you can train models by giving it huge amounts of non-paired code. It takes a lot more resources, and you still have to do some validation when you're done. So we're going to be doing training starting with pairs of things, but then we're going to be moving on to some of that other stuff as well. And that's because the way we're going to do this is we're going to involve the community. And I bet if any of you have heard anything about this, you know this already. We're launching a project to train a ready for primetime AI code assistant in RPG. We are contributing to this, all the RPG that we have that we can take advantage of. So everything in our RPG manuals, the presentations that we've done to teach people about various new capabilities of RPG, etc. And then we have reached out to a bunch of experts who agreed before we even started talking about this project, that they would help us by donating code, donating information, etc. So you can see some of those people. I have since received many, many more people who've said yes. So I'm either going to have to stop listing these people or I'm going to have 2 pages with names. And thank you very much for all of you who have agreed to contribute material to help train this model. If you're interested in becoming one of the people who helps to train this large language model, we have a place for you to start. Send an email to this AI for IBMi at IBM.com, and then we will contact you and say, okay, if you want to contribute code, here are ways that you can do it, and we need you to sign a license. It's sort of like agreeing that you're going to have an open source license attached to this piece of code, because eventually we have to use your code to train our model, and we need your permission to do it. And if you want to, you can even allow us to put it in eventually to put it in a public GitHub so that everybody can see what we used to train the model. Okay. By the way, you can contribute code and have it stay private if you want that as well. There's a bunch of people who are doing that. And so I want you to be aware you can participate in this if you want to. So that's pretty exciting. All of this AI stuff is not going to be available in the next quarter, right? I've shown you here, there's a lot of AI work that's being done by clients and you can do it today. But these bigger things, having easily consumable workloads for AI analytics connected to your data, that's a ways out. We're working on that internally. We have a few customers we're working with to validate that what we're doing is going to work for them. But in this particular case, we're getting lots of people involved, because the more of this stuff that we have, the better the model will be trained, because any large language model that's out there today that even does a bit of RPG did not have very much RPG to work with to get trained, and so it's not very good at it in general. Hey, we want a model that's been trained by a lot of very good RPG that came from people who used RPG to teach other people RPG and to transform businesses by using RPG code. And so the model that we have will have the benefit of all of this community support, and that's going to be a differentiator, I think, between this large language model and any other one that gets done.